Another fascinating thing, and we've talked about, of course, Taylon Green's QB1, but trends, knowing how college football is, odds are there's probably going to come a time, you don't want it to, where the backup quarterback's going to have to play. Whether it's just, taking a shot and, having to get, having the wind knocked out of you, having to come out, whatever it is. And it certainly seems like Malachi Singleton has solidified himself as QB2 for that. Well, Petrino was asked a little bit about him in a couple of questions, but one of the ones was asking about his coachability and how confident is Petrino in Malachi Singleton if he had to come in significant snaps during a game this season.
Yeah, Malachi is really coachable and extremely intelligent. He picks things up quickly. One of the things you want as a coach is to try where it works out, where you only have to tell a kid one time and then they get it. Malachi's that guy. You usually only have to tell him one time, and then he can carry it over to the next day, or he can carry over what you coached him to 3 days from now and do it that way. And it's a lot of fun when you get a young man like that who can pick things up and adjust and be coachable like that. He knows the offense well, and he's timing. I think he's still learning himself as far as what throws I can and can't make. That resulted in a few picks yesterday. But you have to do that as a quarterback. And like I said, his ability to run and scramble and keep his eyes downfield is very good.
So we've seen a little bit from Malachi Singleton, spring ball. He played in the spring game a little bit, and hearing from Petrino and everything. I mean, does that change your confidence, or does that make you a lot more confident that if something happened to Taylon Green, that Malachi Singleton can step right in and pick up right where he left off?
I mean, yeah, it makes you feel good to hear the offensive coordinator saying he trusts the backup quarterback, but we're talking about how he really likes to inject confidence into his quarterbacks. I don't know why he would say anything differently. The facts are he hasn't taken a snap as a college football player. So, it's going to be like a jury is out thing. And that's the case with a lot of backup quarterbacks, but I did like what I saw from Malachi Singleton in the spring. And as he's continued to progress, he just, of all the options, he just seemed a little bit more poised and under control and in command of the offense. And that's what you're looking for. And Petrino, he was asked about him a little bit earlier than that clip that we just played. And one of the things that he said that stood out to me was folks won't know how good Malachi Singleton is until they have to tackle him. And that's just that other dimension to his game that, if he needs to improvise and get out of trouble, then he can use his legs to do that. That's always a good thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say sneaky athletic, but Malachi Singleton, he's one of those guys where might not even look like the most athletic guy on the planet, but he had a couple times in the spring where he was able to actually run, and you see his top end speed a little bit. I do think that Arkansas would have some confidence in him if something were to happen to Taylon Green, but I also think, and we talked about this before, that Bobby would have to kind of adjust some things because they're different skill sets, different passers of the football. I think Taylon is a little bit more arm strength there in the arsenal there, but I think Malachi's a little bit more accurate. So maybe you would change kind of the go-to combinations. I mean, we talked about some of the routes that Taylon's comfortable throwing. I'm sure those are a little bit different for Singleton. And so I think that would be interesting to see of just how different would the offense look if they were having to go to Malachi Singleton. But I think they have some confidence in him. And so I'm just curious to see what that confidence level is like this time next year as well as it continues to progress.
Yeah, hopefully that it's actually real. And so if there were a situation where Malachi Singleton had to come into the game, that they would let him play and let him throw. And it wouldn't be the situations like, past years when it was like, all right, yeah, we love Malik Hornsby. Oh yeah, if it wasn't for KJ, he'd be starting right now. Oh, he's the future. And then he's got to come in the game, and they literally would not let the kid throw the football. Like they were terrified to let the ball leave his hands. That's what you don't want. And I don't get the sense that that's the case with Singleton. I think there's a little bit more legitimate trust there than that.
Yeah, and not to talk too much about the past, but I like Kendall Briles. I thought Kendall Briles was a pretty good offensive coordinator. I mean, the numbers were there, the scoring was there. It seemed to utilize his strength, but the one thing that I feel like he was not made and not good at was getting developing quarterbacks. Because Malik Hornsby, he was there for what, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, yeah, and so he did not get any better. You didn't really go and get anybody better. and you know that KJ was a guy, yeah, he's built like a truck, but he was getting banged up. You just didn't prepare him. You did not prepare him for those moments, and that's kind of a slight against you. And you do a lot of great things, but that's a problem. And you can tell with Petrino when he's being asked about Singleton, there's a whole game plan preparation feel for him, because I feel like not only is Petrino good at developing quarterbacks, but he understands in college football, odds are his guy may go down. And if he does go down, we still have a chance to win. You know, it's not like in basketball when Calipari talked about, hey, if your best player goes down, you know, you're screwed no matter what. It's like Petrino's kind of more like, no, if our best player, if our best quarterback goes down, I feel confident enough in his backup to where is he as good? No, because he would be starting if he was. But can he do a good enough job to still win us a game? That's where that development and that confidence comes into a backup quarterback role.
Well, and just think about it like this. If you're an opposing defense and the quarterback you're playing against gets hurt and the next guy comes in and they hand the ball off 3 times in a row, what's that telling you? They don't trust this guy. We can kind of creep up towards that line of scrimmage. Whereas if they, you know, like Tyler Wilson in that Auburn game, if they come out and they're slicing and dicing and taking shots right off the bat, you're kind of like, oh, wait a minute. They're throwing the ball, and this is a little bit different than it was. It's a completely different feel. And I mean, teams aren't stupid. Teams can smell blood in the water. And I just think back to that A&M game, like you referenced, Curtis, and A&M sniffed it out right away. They could tell, hey, they do not trust this guy to throw the ball at all. And I don't think Arkansas, they went a long time without getting a first down. And so I think it's a great point of like, I don't think Bobby would be dumb enough to bring in Malachi Singleton and just put the handcuffs on him completely and be like, all right, we're just going to hope nobody notices that we have a backup quarterback in. I think Bobby, that's one thing he takes pride in, is kind of having these guys ready to roll and having a package for any of them. And frankly, we haven't heard KJ Jackson's name hardly at all during fall camp. Who knows if that's maybe he's struggling. Maybe it's just kind of not really a battle there or whatever. But I would also be interested to see if they had a little bit of a package for him, because he's an intriguing athlete. And I like what his potential could be in this offense.
And it does take me back to the question that was asked to us last week. I think it was Megan actually that asked the question about, you know, how much Singleton or whoever backup quarterback do we see against UAPB? Well, first of all, you got to take care of business. But I think getting those opportunities would be really, really important, because it's not a situation where you have, you know, Jacoby Criswell, who, you know, he's your backup quarterback and, you know, he's never really been a starter, but he's gotten his feet wet. You know, he's played in some games, but when you've never taken a snap, you need as many low pressure opportunities you can get right away to learn some things about yourself on game day. So yeah, like if you can get him going against UAB, UAPB, if you're in control of some of those games, that's going to help you out a lot down the stretch. Nothing would make me more uncomfortable than if it was a situation where, like Texas A&M, where, you know, you have a deal, Taylon Green, you know, goes knee to knee with somebody, he's got to come out for a series, and then you got Singleton walking out there at AT&T Stadium where the lights are extremely, extremely bright on him. If he's got a few quarters under his belt by that point, I feel a lot better than I do if that's his first snaps that he's taken as a college football player.
Yeah, I mean, I always reference the game that Tyler Wilson came in after Mallet went down in Auburn on the road. Go back and watch those highlights, folks, if you ever have a chance to, because like you guys just discussed, when Tyler came out there, it wasn't like the only time we'd really seen Tyler Wilson is in mop-up duty, or that time as a freshman, he had to go up against Texas and Colt McCoy on the road, and it went horrible. Like that was it. And I think everybody, knowing how great Ryan Mallett was, they're like, oh, geez, you know, this is going up against Auburn with Cam Newton. This ain't going to be pretty. But what it was is as far as the offense and the look of it, did not change. It wasn't like, all right, let's get Tyler comfortable here on the road in a hostile environment, handing the ball off and doing a little screen pass. No, I think it was the second play of the game, maybe. He went for a 25-yard pass downfield. Like that's the type of thing where Petrino also wants his backup quarterbacks to not be like deer in the headlights whenever something happens. Like, hey, you're going in and this is what we're doing, to be scared about it. So doing all he can to make these guys confident, especially a guy like Malachi Singleton, which, as you mentioned, hasn't really played a snap in major college football. But if Arkansas if they're on the road to Auburn or whatever, and Taylon Green gets, you know, banged up a little bit, I expect Malachi Singleton to go in. How he'll perform is one thing, but as far as the offense and the look of it and how they run it, I think it'll be just fine. And who knows, because of Petrino, he's talking about his legs, maybe that's part of the strength and maybe part of the game plan that they would have for him is like, hey, yeah, you may not throw as much, but because we're going to run some RPO, some options, some QB draws, whatever it is, just to get your legs moving too.